want to welcome Sammy Joe and Dean. Dean, thanks for joining us. Sammy Joe, I just discovered I got Peter Whitney's background as a broadcaster with his university hockey team and asking him stories about that. So when you're on again with him,
Amazing. I wanna know more about his background. I'll watch the video though. Good to
and
see you guys.
and
Me too.
and he really hasn't got the extensive hockey background like most broadcasters, but he's got the knowledge to do the job, and he loves it, doing a great job. So, welcome to the Nomadic coach, Dean Holden. Now, Dean, before we get into this topic of your thesis and your journey, I want to ask Sammy Joe and anybody else here. We've been sharing stories about all the different countries and the cultural things that you had to be careful for in your travels. Sammy Joe, have you encountered any cultural situation that you learned from and you would understand better how to react or behave or respond?
I think that it's an interesting conversation, and I'll let Dean get to his thesis shortly. But I think every single trip that we took as a national team was something to learn. I tried to approach each situation with open mind, and I was always the one that was buying the translating dictionary so that I could have some conversational phrases so that I could thank people and make sure that I was doing the appropriate thing locally. But I certainly had some teammates that hated the food, hated traveling, hated um, the lack of sunshine in Finland, hated those kind of things. But I feel like that just goes to each person's characteristic as to how you can adapt. But it certainly teaches you to adapt in different places. And since my playing career, my husband and I have been able to travel with hockey to a lot more places. And it's amazing how hockey is um, can just be a common denominator, that you have the shared interest and the shared sense of play that allows people to open up. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the places that I've got to see. I often think like I kind of wish I was in a warm weather sport so I could have gone to Brazil and South America and all of that. But I certainly have seen pretty much every place that has snow. But pretty lucky and pretty fortunate for sure. So I'll leave it at that. And Wally, I can't stay for too long because we're preparing for the announcement tomorrow for Team Canada women's ice hockey as being, I say ice hockey as if I'm in the States, but we're announcing it on TSN tomorrow. So
No problem,
just
Sammy.
preparing for the show.
What you just said is a great segue to Dean. And
Perfect.
when we've been talking, when you were talking, and Dean was just, I could see he was smiling and nodding his head about culture. So, Dean, you're obviously one of those coaches who's got connected around the world with the game, and you've had to adapt. Can you talk a bit about some of those cultural things that you've experienced over the years that you've learned from that you might warn people of if they're going to visit a country?
Well, I was able to jump on. I just heard a little bit of Tom's story there, and I know he was in Salzburg with Red Bull, and it sounds like you guys had quite a good conversation about sharing some funny faux pas. Probably they weren't deliberate. They were just based on a lack of the cultural awareness. But yeah, no, I guess it's been quite an interesting journey. Like, and picking up on what Sammy Joe is saying, having that privilege of an opportunity of being able to travel and using sport as the vehicle and seeing a lot of neat and different places, strange places, and my the thesis that I'm working on is the aims and objectives, basically sharing my experiences as I travel through across new cultures. And I use for my data, my research data, it's just a writing form called autoethnography. So it's about me, about my lived experiences. And I'm using three short stories or vignettes that are creative nonfiction. And I anonymize everything so I don't, for ethical reasons, I don't give anything away. And I paint these stories and they're designed to be standalone stories. So a typical coach can read them and understand them and get drawn into them, and um, hopefully they're evocative enough that, like I say, that coach will get drawn in, and then actually start to experience and relate to the story. Like, oh yeah, oh, what's going to happen next, and there's a plot, and but these are based on real life events, but they stand alone, Wally, and hopefully anybody that would read them by themselves then would start to maybe see elements of themselves through my eyes and through my experience, and go, oh, I've been in a situation like that, or I've experienced this, and oh, but I didn't respond that way, or I think he should have responded that way. So it's almost like like I hope that they're going to be like tools so that other people can just read them without all the academic um, supportive structure around them, so that they would be useful and help people understand a lot of the common situations that appear when you travel and when you are in a new culture, a new climate. And then of course, because it's a PhD, then I have to add all the academic supportive structure to it, and that's probably not going to be as exciting, and it's not definitely going to be not as readable and welcoming, and stuff that you want to read, when you're awake, maybe when you want to go to sleep. But yeah, so I mean, they're basically an amalgamation of, and these three were chosen deliberately because they don't happen on the ice. Because a lot of our, like when we go internationally as a coach or a coach developer, or a leader, like what I'm doing with the IIHF, when we do strategic leadership facilitation for the federations. Um, so much of our work, and I say our work, meaning coaches or coach developers, leaders, is done off the ice. It's not done during practices and games. There's a lot of that happens. But for me, the three vignettes, the first one is titled Passport Control. So that one speaks about negotiating your way across international boundaries and how you get sorted and how you make sense of the whole situation, because things can go sideways in a real hurry, or you can just press on and no problem, and hopefully 99.9% of the time it's the latter, where there are no issues, and you just maybe smile for the biometric camera and stick your fingerprints on something and you get entered into a country. Um, get the stamp and away you go. And then the second vignette that I provided was entitled "The Giving of the Shit," and so this speaks a little bit more to. It's a bit of a play on language, and it's a little bit of a play on um, people whose native tongues are not English, but sometimes they're trying to communicate in English. So that's why it's the giving of the shit, because that's exactly verbatim the phrase that was used over and over. You need to come to this meeting. It's going to be the giving of the shit. So, like, I had to kind of stop myself from laughing because they kept saying this with an accent. And obviously, you don't want to come across as making fun of somebody you just met because of how they talk. But I had to kind of chuckle to myself about the just how they phrased that and how they used it. But it turned out that meeting was very much about the giving of the shit, and how power and humiliation and ridicule. You know, in this instance and in other instances, but in this one in particular, they're used as they're weaponized and they're used as regular tools from a top-down leadership position when leadership is addressing some of their coaches and pointing out their flaws and and then how do I navigate that? Because now I'm in a position where I'm brought in as an expert outsider to work with these coaches and hopefully develop a trusting relationship because I have to connect first with people to work. And I wanted to remain neutral and not be saddled with stuff that's happened in the past before I get a chance to work with them. And yet here I am having to attend a meeting, which then, before I even meet the coaches, places me in a predicament because obviously I'm working for this organization, and because I have to attend the meeting where there was quite the heated giving of the shit for about 3 hours in a small room, nowhere to hide, just my mere presence, and they introduced me, here's who's going to be working with you down the road. But I'm hired by the organization, therefore I'm a part of the organization. Therefore, just my mere presence being there, even though I had nothing to do with whatever happened in the past, situates me on the side of the organization and that power hierarchy that is delivering the shit. And yet I have to create a connection and a positive working relationship with a bunch of these individuals. So that was quite a conundrum. So it's how do you manage these constraints that are outside of your control and potentially threatening the success or failure and influencing how well you're going to do. So that's the second one. And again, I think that it can be very much be translatable and transferable to other real life scenarios in work, leadership, business, sport that we can all relate to. And the third one is called Meeting Mr. and Mrs. Big. So again, it's not taking place at practice or a game, but I'm told that I'm going to meet the Mr. Big, and he's the big kahuna. And I'm at a hockey game, and I'm just dressed casually. I don't know that I'm going to meet Mr. Big. And all of a sudden, they say, end of the first period, you're going to meet Mr. Big, and we'll come and get you 5 minutes before, and you're going to meet him. I'm, oh, okay, good. Like, no problem, no pressure. As someone who's traveled internationally, I try to do my homework. I try to read about that nation's culture and history and, common faux pas. So, I don't sip from my drink because they will continue to fill it. And it's like drinking rubbing alcohol and it's horrible. So it's best just to leave it there, things like this. And anyway, so I think nothing of it. I get led into this room and then told to sit somewhere, and then I get left, and then this whole soprano-like meeting unfolds, and I'm part of it, and I'm the only one in this room, and then all of a sudden, men it's a combination of the Sopranos. All these men in black three-piece suits file in, and I'm sitting in a little chair by itself, looking over a table onto another chair that's raised. So it's higher than anything else in the room, which gives the impression of power. It's like a throne. And then there's a bunch of little wooden chairs off to my one side, 2 rows, and there's 1 row of chairs behind me. So I sit down, I'm told to sit there. It's dark. All of a sudden, the door opens, there's energy, there's activity. All these chairs get filled up by guys in suits. I call them the men in black. They're all dressed almost identical. And there's guys behind me, guys beside me, and nobody across. Then a door opens at the far end of the room. and there's a hush. You could like you can just like I have never experienced anything like this in my life, and I've met with a lot of high-end people, but there's a hush, and the door opens, and this man comes out, also in a three-piece suit. He floats across the floor, and he sits in the throne across from me. Behind him is a trophy case. There's no windows in this room, and it's dead silent. You can hear his shoes squeak as he walks. He sits, he glances at me, and then he glances over to most of the people that are sitting on that one side. And he holds court in a foreign language, and it's very pointed because I don't speak the language. When you don't speak the language, and Sammy Joe, you mentioned this, you were trying to find translation dictionaries, and I mean nowadays it's on phones. You can have Google Translate, and there's programs, and there's even earbuds now that help translate stuff. Like technology is crazy, but I didn't have any of that, and all I had was my past experience and basically shut up, Dean. You take your orders and your direction from body language cues, because when you don't have the ability to communicate through language, it's like a glass wall. You can see them, they can see you. You can kind of, play charades, but you're really trying to read body cues and body language. What do I do here? When do I do it? And like I say, as he came in, everybody rose up and stood very respectfully. And so, the glass wall, it wasn't even verbal. They just did it because they knew what the culture was and the expectation was. I didn't, but I figured maybe I should do the same as them. So I stood up and at attention, but I was a couple of seconds slower than them. And then when they sat down, there is a delay. I sat down. So this glass wall, even though it allows me to kind of fit in, I'm not really fitting in. I'm the only white guy who's not in a black suit, and I'm slow behind everybody. So anyway, this story talks about how you deal with very high level meetings when you don't really have a lot of forewarning. And like I say, I did do my homework. I did understand what culture I was going into. I did what I could. But again, I was not informed I was going into this high level meeting. So I was just in casual attire, and I felt underdressed. And so these stories are supposed to, like I say, stand on their own, but as you read them and hopefully you get drawn into them, you feel, these senses of power and how you struggle to maintain a connection and to make decisions. How do you respond? Because how you respond in all three of these settings, whether it's passport control, whether it's meeting Mr. Big, or you're in an organizational meeting with the person who signs your paychecks and the people that you're supposed to work with. How do you make these decisions? How do you act? How do you carry yourself? And you've got to be culturally sensitive. You've got to be professionally grounded. You want to try to learn how to make the best decisions you can under pressure to protect your own identity, your authenticity, your reputation, and still allow you to perform your work with both whoever you're doing it with, your coaches, the players, and the people that are in charge. So that's what the thesis is about, Wally. It's almost, it's in the area of coaching, but I would situate it also more squarely in leadership and decision making.
Sammy Joe, do you have any questions? I'm really, really intrigued. Sammy,
I'm curious if you've read the book by Dave Bedini where he travels around the world
Yes,
playing hockey.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. You know what? I was never a big Rio Statics fan back in my university days, but I did see them play at McEwen Hall, I believe, back in my old undergrad days in the early 80s. And I was there, well, 80s through 90s. And because I went back and I taught and worked at U of C, so I would go to some of the concerts. So I was aware of who Dave Bedini was and his music. And it's funny you said that because I read his book. I believe it came out in 2001, 2002. I think it's called The Tropic of Hockey.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I'd read that a long time ago, and one reads so many bloody books. Like, I was just thinking today, as I came down to my basement, I call it the dungeon or the pit, to chain myself to the desk that I just left 4 hours ago at 6:30 in the morning because I was up all night again working on this. And I was going back down to the dungeon, the pit. And I'm going, oh, The Pit and the Pendulum, Edgar Allan Poe. That was a good book. Geez, I haven't read that forever. I can't even remember it. So I didn't recall Dave Bedini's book. But then once I started down this path and I started to clarify my research topic, and it's the short side version of this is I was doing action research. That was my initial dissertation topic, but because I kept getting moved around within countries and I wasn't able to work with one population for a long enough period of time, my data would have been useless. Like I needed to have at least 8 to 12 weeks in order to have an effective study. And I couldn't have all these variables mucking with it, and they always did. So we threw up our hands and gave up on the action research idea. And I was documenting everything wherever I was, regardless, because I got into the habit of journaling as a coach when I started. And my supervisor said, "Look, we'll figure it out. Just you roll with the punches, and at the end of this, we'll figure it out, and we'll make it work." Well, then COVID hit, and I got stranded in Europe, and then finally I was able to make my way back to Calgary. And for that year and a half, there was no sport, there was nothing happening. So heads bigger than I started to think about, well, how can we do how can we create a PhD thesis topic for Dean, and co-create it with me based on all the research that you were doing was not, you can't do action research. So we came up with this idea about a retrospective look over the last 10 years of my coaching career, through North America, Asia, Europe, the Middle East. And that's when I don't know how it happened, Sammy Joe, but I think I was on YouTube or something, and Dave Bedini popped up, and I'm going, oh yeah, Dave Bedini. I go, geez, he had that great book. You know what? That book would probably be a good read again now, based on my experience. And I actually read it, and then I found on YouTube there's a few things, and he had a camera guy and a sound guy follow him around. And when he went over to Europe in 99, 2000, he documented it, and it's on YouTube in sections. There's 3 sections to it. And he was actually in one of the towns that I worked in. And so there's a lot of the same people, 20 years difference. And then he was in the Middle East and a few other places. So I watched that, I read that. I mean, I fell in love with his stuff all over again. I'm just, and I go, I wonder, what is Dave Bedini doing? So I looked him up, and he's a newspaper editor in Toronto somewhere, and he's like a small publication, I believe. I sent him an email. I found his email, and I go, what are the odds, right? Some dude, like, he's kind of famous, like as a band guy. So I don't care about that. I just thought, like, it was very cool. He was such a passionate fan and traveled. I sent him an email. He got right back to me within 2 days, and you know what? Like, next time I'm out there, I'm gonna look him up, and hopefully we're gonna go for lunch. Like, very, very cool background that he has. So it was kind of in the background, and it became in the foreground, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. So yeah.
Serendipity, I guess, right?
Oh, isn't it
Um,
crazy? Yeah.
the reason I ask is David's actually become a great friend here in Toronto. We live in
Oh,
Mississauga, so not
oh
too
man.
far.
Nice.
And that was one of my favorite books.
Oh,
I didn't know him at all. I'm from Winnipeg, so I didn't know him at all. and I'm not even sure how our paths crossed. Might have been through, there's a lot of like music and hockey tournaments that go on.
Yeah.
But I've read some of his other books as well. And then when I was president of the Toronto Furies in the CWHL, he reached out to me and he said, "It's been my dream my whole life to do play-by-play. Do you guys have anybody doing play-by-play?" I said, "No, we don't even have any TV for the games, but we'll figure it
Really?
out. If you want to do play-by-play." My brother's a huge music fan, so like I knew the
Nice.
Rheostatics, I knew all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, he did play-by-play for the Toronto Furies. And
That's
so we set it
hilarious.
up with live streaming. He did solo play-by-play standing in the stands, basically,
With his hat.
um,
I love that hat.
with
It's
his hat. Yeah.
trademark.
And
Love it.
anyways, so then when I went to publish my book, I reached out to him to
Mm.
get some ideas. He hooked me up with my publisher, which was really great.
Nice.
And yeah, he runs the West End Phoenix, so it's one of
That's
the
right. Amazing.
last community-based newspapers
Yeah.
in Canada, really, and is just a prolific writer.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so just an amazing guy who has had these amazing experiences. You're gonna
Oh,
love him if you get a chance to, even if
oh,
you
I want
don't,
to
like
meet him.
just um, maybe hook up over Zoom because I feel like you
Yeah.
guys would have stories like no other. And
Oh,
yeah, he just has this unique perspective, like yourself, for somebody that's traveled, but that also, like, we have a lot of teammates, I'm sure, within hockey that have traveled, but have
yeah.
they really traveled? You know, have they really appreciated
They're
the
in a
culture? Have
bubble.
they really, yeah. So,
They stay in that
um,
team bubble and they don't explore. And
totally.
I'm like one of the guys I read one of the researchers. He's a British guy, McGuire. I came across one of his works that he put out in '96 or '98, and he was writing about British ice hockey and how the primarily the Canadians really supplanted British ice hockey. And my cousin went over and played after his university career for a few years. And I remember him telling me stories. I think Basingstoke, I think, was one of the
Oh,
places he was
Basingstoke, yeah.
in.
Hmm.
And it was, I mean, the league has gone through a couple of different iterations. Like they've called it different things, but he flew over and I believe he played there like 2 or 3 years. And in the off season of his first year, I think it was, instead of coming home, and he was dating a girl. He went to Acadia after U of C, and they ended up getting married, still married, living in Spokane. And anyways, she went over with him, and they said, "Look, we're building a new rink. We need people. We need help. Do you mind sticking around the off season and working on the rink?" So, instead of coming back, he came back for a little bit, but my cousin flew back and Kim and he worked as a laborer to help build the rink that he was hoping to play in, right? Like, and so this McGuire guy talked about he created um definitions of four definitions of terms of what he saw of international playing nomads coming in to help supplant British ice hockey. And he talked about mercenaries who just came for the money, like just give me as much money as I can, keep my career going. I don't care, right? And I'm using a sweeping generalization here and simplifying it, but to your comment, that would be like somebody who just, comes over, performs their role, they're not interested, that's good enough. I'm not going to get involved outside, and then I'm leaving. And then there was a term he used, which was pioneer, where the first people come and they get invested and they stay and they continue to build. So when their career is over, in this case, instead of flying back to Canada, perhaps they stay and they get a job because they've made connections now, and maybe they end up having kids there, right? But they're there for the building and they stay. And then how I characterize myself was more of oh, what's the word? It's like a more of a cosmopolitan approach where I come in and it's not saying I don't want to make money. It's not saying I'm not early or I don't want to build and be a pioneer, but I'm there and I'm appreciating the entire experience. It's not just about the hockey. It's about the community. It's about maybe learning some of the language and the customs. It's about integrating a little bit and assimilating a little bit, not fully, and appreciating the architecture, the cultural aspects, going to some of the music, the dance that are endemic to the country, and appreciating it and enjoying it. And so I love travel. I love architecture. I love the other cultural elements, the music, the customs, and probably in a bunch of my journeys, like I've been invited to a funeral early on in different contracts, let's say, and because I was able to connect, and somebody passed away of somebody who was working there, and I would really like it if you would attend, and this father's funeral, and then a marriage, and all kinds of like significant milestones in people's lives, and I get invited, and to me that's just like that's unbelievable. Like an outsider who is able to connect, and I get to see and feel and taste and smell the experience of what it's like to be a local. So for me, I really see myself as this cosmopolitan style of motivated person who comes in and tries to enjoy everything rather than stay in that bubble.
I love that because I feel like that those are the experiences you're going to remember and
Oh,
friendships you're going to make. Like Tom talks about going to the World Championships every year
yes.
and meeting up with friends from all around the world. Like he wouldn't have got that opportunity had he not done that, and been that person. So
Well, and I've got
Switzerland this
pictures of
year.
Tom sitting in Salzburg there. I don't know. I think, well, I don't know if you're still here, Tom, but I've
Yeah, I
got
am.
I've got incriminating evidence, but don't worry, I'm not going to spill the beans about World Championships 2015 in Czech Republic. But I've got some appropriate pictures, and I'm huge on photography, Sammy Joe. So I never was, but now that I've got a cell phone, I take bloody pictures everywhere. It ticks people off. I went to Wally's 80th. I must have taken 50, 100 pictures. I'll sort through them and delete some. But to me, I find that pictures help situate me in my life. They help me remember what I'm doing, and it's like music and photography. It's not just the memory of an event, but when you see a picture, you read a book, um, you listen to music. I don't know if it works for you guys, but for me, I also remember what it was like to feel what I was feeling in that situation a lot of times. So it's that visceral, emotive connection that I have, and I'm going, geez, I remember that picture. That was a great night, Tommy. Remember I took you to the Black Angel Lounge downstairs after
That's
that
the one in
late
the basement.
cafe in the basement. It was built 1,200 years ago. Remember, I got you drinking absinthe? That was a great night, buddy. Little hallucinatory experience.
That
I
was
was
quite the
really
drink
proud of you
on
for
it.
doing that. Anyway, I won't go any further because I don't want to incriminate Tom. So, and I don't know
Wally's
how
gonna have
your
to cut it
insurance
out of the
policy is.
Wally's gonna have to cut it out of his what he puts online too if you go too much further.
No, I know. I'm just joking. But it was everything was legal and above board on the stuff I'm telling you. But yeah, I mean, and I maintain coaches community of practices now through What's Up, and I'm connected throughout the world throughout my travels, and continue to work and mentor and stay connected. So I love traveling because my friend network now has expanded so widely, and I think it's really awesome to be able to connect on a human level. And hockey is the vehicle, sport is the vehicle, but we're all human beings, and we all have similar, we all have feelings, we all have issues, and we can grow our perspective around different cultures just by opening up. So it's been an amazing ride, amazing.
Well, there's about five guys that want to go to the Worlds this year in Switzerland
I
because of
think
the
I'm going to
stories
go,
I tell
Tom. I
them. And
think this year I'm going because it's in Zurich, and my friend Simon there is with the national women's team, and he's got a flat, and I've been threatening to come visit him, and I've stayed with him a couple times before. But my plan is this year that I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go longer. I've got to meet a bunch of people, but I'm hoping to go, so we'll have to connect on that later.
Yeah, well, this year Canada plays in Freeborg.
Yeah, yeah,
They don't
yeah.
play in Zurich. It's about 90 minutes away, apparently.
Yeah, but I think the coaching seminar is going to be in Zurich, is what I was
Well, the
told
coaching seminars in
initially.
Zurich for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we'll see. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. It'd be good. I'd like to see you again because it's been 10 years since you and I had some hijinks there in the Czech Republic. So it's about time, every 10 years, I think.
Yeah. Well, I better not wait another 10. So
Well, but you're an Irishman, so I know like what you're capable of.
you betcha.
Well, Sammy, um, I'm sure glad you came on because
Yeah.
um, Dean was doing his work on his thesis, and Dean, I have to admit that uh, I had no idea where where you were going with this thesis, and the length
Me
of time
neither,
you worked on
Wally.
it. I'm sure you've changed concepts, ideas, approaches, but what an amazing task that your supervisor would work with you to that degree, because what I've heard from you is just absolutely brilliant, real, authentic information. And
Where are you doing your PhD?
Cardiff Met University in Wales.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I was
Did
over
you?
there. I went over there. I was teaching at Mount Royal University, and then I ended up having a semester off. So I was going to do it all online, Sammy Joe, but um, it would have been a lot cheaper, and I wouldn't have had to leave my family. But it also, it just worked out that, actually I was going to go for the entire year, get the year off to go. And so I went thinking I was going to be gone for the year, and I ended up just staying the first semester, the fall semester. And I'm really glad that it turned out how it turned out. Like the ability to go there and to um, fully immerse myself in the culture and in the um, in the direction of just focusing on becoming a student again, because I hadn't been a student in bloody forever. And
I don't know if Wally told you I'm doing my MBA right now. So I turn 50 in a couple months, and so I just decided why not?
yeah,
I
good
think
for
similar
you.
to you, kind of lifelong learner, and just
Yeah.
but going back and being a student, and I don't know if in a PhD you have to do exams, but like sitting down and doing an exam with a pencil again, like
Oh,
it's
jeez.
weird.
I haven't used a pencil for a coon's age, but the you know what, like I it was funny. I think one of my attributes is like I do my homework, like I say, when I'm going internationally, I try to learn stuff, but I don't I think it's like a naivete almost, where I don't really worry about myself so much as I like, well, how do like what's going on over there? What do I need to know? And again, when I did my master's degree like so many years ago, like I think I graduated in like 2000 or something. And so I started this in 2018. And they interviewed me online, and I kind of got to see meet the department head, and I saw the room they were in, and I didn't really know too much about it, to be honest. I was just looking for something online that I could, preferably to do it online, so I could continue, you know, living in Calgary, working, being a dad, and I was looking in sports psych or sports sociology. I didn't care. I applied, I ended up getting this thing, and then they said, well, actually, you're going to have to wait a year and defer because we don't have any space available for an online student. And I'm okay, well, maybe I'll have to wait. And then they emailed me a couple weeks later and said, well, we had somebody drop, so we could have you come in now as an online student. but I had already made the decision because I had the year off. You know what? I'm just going to go. And so when I got there, I honestly I thought I didn't really look into the specifics. I jumped through all the hoops, gave them all the stuff they need, got selected, ended up going. I flew over into the little airport into Cardiff. I had a hockey bag full of clothing and a backpack, and I had to figure out how to get from point A to point B with no cell phone because I didn't have, a service provider, and I couldn't find a place to buy a card. And I didn't know about, oh, you buy an eSIM. I mean, these are, old dog learning new tricks, and struggled my way into Cardiff and found a place. But when I got there, the cohort was only 4 people, and I was older than my profs. And I'm going, holy Christ, like, like I didn't even, I never even thought about like the obvious. So that's why I say that sense of naivete. And then they're using words that I don't even know what they're saying, and it's not Welsh, it is English with an accent. And but even their terminology in English can be different in the meanings. And I'm struggling to follow what they're saying because they're speaking quickly, and even though it's English, it's like it is and it isn't. And then I remember after that first day, um, I left and I took my bicycle. I've taken my bicycle all over the bloody world. Just that's how I get around in case I don't have access to a vehicle. And it's a more personal way to you ride, you experience the society. And I remember riding home going, what have I gotten myself into, man? Like, and I didn't even know how to get to the bloody university. I walked it the first day, but it's so twisty and turny. And I rode a wrong turn. It took me like 3 hours instead of an hour to get there. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a map. And I go home and I go, you know what? I haven't been a student for 18, 19, 20 years. I don't know what was said in this 3 hour seminar. I know I've got readings and homework. Like, and then I found out this is I'm in a sociology of sport program. I didn't even really know. I didn't pay attention. I'm going, okay, I got to bone up on my sociology. So every night, well, every day, I walked to this the other campus library that was closer to me, or rode my bike, and I would just immerse myself in that university library and just go, where's the undergrad textbooks? Because I'm not operating at a PhD level here. My knuckles are bloody from dragging them on the way over as a former hockey player. Um, I need to, I need to get up to speed. And I was there that the 4 months, and I was in that library daily trying to raise my own level of knowledge to just so I wouldn't appear like the Canadian idiot in the classroom, right? And then they actually said, I went to them and I said, I'm struggling. Like I might have bitten off more than I can chew. And they said, you know what? Come and sit in on our master's seminars once a week. And one of the profs, he does that one as well. And we'll give you some of those readings, and he'll ask you questions, and you can contribute and like co-help co-lead the class because you've taught university and junior senior high for years. Like you can do it, but come in and kind of help with our master's program. And so having that expectation and that extra responsibility was of benefit because it helped me bridge that gap from undergrad to master's in a different subject than my old master's. And then I started to integrate better into the PhD courses. I could start to follow them and contribute, right? So an old dog can learn new tricks. Sometimes we've just got to do more of the background work, right? So it's possible. And hats off for you to do it because like you, I love to learn. I'm curious, and my brain never switches off. I love it.
And when is your expected completion date?
Well, I'm hoping to be done here this year. Like I'm
Oh, so by the World
working.
Championships, Tom's gonna have to call you doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Feelgood. That's right. Yeah,
Know
no,
about
like
the
I mean,
most.
I won't. I don't think my oral defense will be done by then. Like I'm gonna submit my stuff here soon. Like I'm writing like a madman, and then there's a few weeks, I guess, of paper shuffling on their end once it gets submitted, and then they tell you, yeah, we'll accept this, or well, you know what, you're gonna have to make some changes, and then from a certain point, then they say a minimum of 3 months. Once they tell you you're good, this is acceptable material, and then you have at least 3 months to prepare for your viva or your oral defense. And so I'm going to do a mock oral defense, and then usually do that 2 weeks before whatever the scheduled real defense is. And then your supervisors grill you and run you through the process, and then give you feedback. And then you got another couple of weeks to try and figure out where your gaps are, and then boom, the real one. And so at the real one, it's a 2 or 3 hour process. I think they have a break in the middle. And there's a chairman who I like, these are all people that I won't know, and deliberately so. And there's a chairman who will run it. And then there's an external examiner from a different university and an internal examiner. And I've heard of the internal, but I don't think I've met him. And again, they do that deliberately as much as they can. And you get grilled for 3 hours of the break, and then they take a half hour, an hour to decide your fate, and then bring you back in. And pass first class honors, pass with reservations. Or, there's like 3 or 4 different categories, and if it's with reservations or whatever they call it, then they'll give you specific things that you have to add to your written dissertation, and then a time limit, and then get it done, and okay, now you're good. So it's not immediate. Usually it's a process. So, and I know they're pressure filled because I've been through um, two of them before, for master's level stuff. And I know they're not fun, but I figure those are, at least I've got that experience under my belt. And I've also sat through some arbitrations that have been pretty challenging. So they can't be any worse than that.
Dina, I want to thank you so much. I've known you a long time, and you've always been studying and working on something. And when you started this actual thesis, how long ago was that?
I went in, I think it was fall of 2018, Wally.
Yeah.
And most places will give you 10 years to complete a PhD, but most people either quit it or get it done, right? And so because of COVID, really it's like 2 years of that are a write-off. And then I, based on me coming back, and of course, I ended up getting divorced and going through all that stuff as well. So there was another year in there that was just, tumultuous to say the least. So really, if you look at the clock, from 2018 till now, you could say that, 3 of those years were kind of zero-sum years, right? So you know what, I think I'm like, based on my cohort of four, one of the guys who started with me, he finished this past year, and then the other two are still working on it. So, it's I was always kind of, how are my other colleagues doing? And one of my supervisors, who's just outstanding, started the year before me and was in some of my classes. He's been an amazing inspiration and help. And he graduated 2 years ago. And so it's a fairly new program, but it's you know I think the beauty of things like this, when they are a small cohort, you do get to know other people, and just maintaining those relationships and networks helps push pull whatever to get you across the finish line. And Wally, speaking to what you said earlier, like my topic was completely different, and it was about action research, and I did a bunch of it, presented a bunch of it before COVID, and then, like I say, COVID really threw the world for a loop. And so we had to improvise, and my supervisors, who were different ones at the time, really helped. And they work with the PhD students. They want you to succeed. Like, they want to get you through, right? They don't want to fail you. They have high standards, and you've got to do the work, but really they want to see you succeed. So, it did change and shift, and there was a period of time where we didn't know what we were going to come up with, if I was going to have to go back and dedicate another block of time just to do research, right? So, yeah, it's been a twisting, turning path, but it's definitely been, a lot of learning along the way that was unexpected. So it was a bonus. Maybe I'm getting two PhDs out of this.
Well, the No Dead Sharks title is very fitting because you're swimming, you're breathing, you're growing, and constantly. I'm very impressed. Sammy Joe, do you have a master's degree?
Don't, no. I just have an engineering degree, but
Engineering.
undergrad.
And that's the thing about education is how many people get degrees or masters, but end up in their lives going a different direction. And Dean, you seem to have stayed the course, studying the game and serving the good of the game by researching it. And I'm so impressed with the three vignettes, and I look forward to a summary of some kind that us mere mortals can comprehend and appreciate. And if the books are designed for coaches, we should be able to understand them. Um, and talking to Tom before you came on, we talked about the complexity and the vocabulary and the words which go into academic research, and wondered where you were going with this and whether we could comprehend. Well, I certainly understood what you did, and I want to thank you for coming on.